Hey guys, and welcome back to Mad About Skin. In today's video, we continue the evolution of series here on the channel. In this series, I do a little bit of a deep dive, a behind the scenes look at some of the most popular skincare brands on the market. We look right the way from launch through to the present day to see how these brands have evolved and changed. I think, in 2021, we all got to grips with the products and the ingredients that we were using in our skincare routine. We really got a greater understanding of how they interact with our skin and the benefits that we can get. However, how much do we actually know about the brands that create these products? And I want to turn the tide on that with this series. I've already covered The Ordinary, which is one of my favourite skincare brands, and I'll leave a link to that video up there if you haven't checked it out already. But today is the turn of the Inkey List, an industry darling that, whilst it's a relative newcomer to the skincare world, has transformed the way that we look and approach our skin. It's got a beautiful drugstore and affordable price point, but there's an awful lot to unpick behind that. So sit back, relax, and let's talk the evolution of the Inkey List. Now, before we get into this video, there's a few caveats that I like to apply. First and foremost, these are just my thoughts, feelings, and opinions when it comes to the Inkey List. I would love to know what yours are, so make sure you sound off in the comments section below. Just promise me that whilst you're down there, you'll also give this video a big thumbs up and a like. This style of video takes a lot of research and pulling together, and by giving the video a thumbs up and a like, it supports me in the channel so much, and I would love you forever. But in true Mad About Skin style, shall we just cut the waffle and start talking the Inkey List? As I said previously, they're a relative newcomer to the skincare world, but don't let that deceive you because they've actually achieved a whole lot in their short time on planet Earth. You don't have to go back a whole long way in order to talk about the start of the Inkey List, which actually occurred in 2018. Just let that sink in a little bit. Think of how big the Inkey List have grown in that 4-year period. Honestly, it's mind-boggling. But Colette and Mark, who are the founders of the Inkey List, started this journey early in 2018. I think what really struck me when I was researching everything to do with the Inkey List is the way that they actually started. So, early on in 2018, Mark and Colette took a £40,000 investment and an 18-week time period and managed to create the whole Inkey List line, formulate, package, and market 15 different skincare products in just an 18-week period. Just let that sink in. That is almost unheard of. I know from personal experience how long it takes to actually formulate, package, test this style of product, and to be able to deliver 15 in such a short period of time, and with a £40,000 investment, I think is testament to the great ingenuity and creativity of the founders themselves. Like, overnight they became industry darlings, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. If you've ever watched an interview with either Mark or Colette or the two of them together, they just have this radiance, this enthusiasm for skincare and the brand itself. They have such a positive vibes, which honestly I think is a little bit infectious. Whilst a lot of people like to tell the rags to riches story of this and how honestly from the ground up with very little investment and time they were able to create this superstar brand, there is a little bit more to that because actually they weren't starting from scratch. Both Mark and Colette had a lot of experience in the beauty industry prior to this, both in marketing and formulation. Obviously this helps when you're delivering a brand, particularly because this actually launched in Cult Beauty, which is one of the biggest online retailers of skincare. Having those connections and the understanding of the industry obviously is a huge leg up, but I still applaud them for being able to take from inception through to launch a product line this comprehensive with such a small investment and with such a small amount of time to do it. This, I think, is probably unheard of, and I doubt very much that we'll be seeing this again in the future. It's one of a kind. When it comes to the owners themselves, Mark and Colette did jointly own BE, which is a skincare and cosmetics company that I think had a few smaller, now defunct lines within them that weren't doing particularly well. Obviously, the Inkey List took off from day one, and so I really think they probably put into practice the things that they'd learned from some of their other brands to launch this. The two founders actually refer to themselves as the worst business people in history, and that actually they only got to where they are through sheer hard work. Again, I like the ethos of with hard work you can get to anywhere you want to be, but I definitely think this is a bit of self-deprecating humour, because there's no way you can describe two people that have set up such a phenomenal skincare business in such a short period of time as anything but amazing business people, and definitely I think this is to their credit that the brand is where it is today. The Inkey List on launch had a clear set of values. It also had what they called their hero products. These 15 products that they launched with were definitely seen as being like the essentials in your skincare routine. They had a different approach to some of the other brands out there in that they really tailored routines that match different skin types, making it super easy and transparent for us, the consumer, to work out which of these hero products we needed in our routine and which we didn't. They also had this nice like millennial appeal vibe to them, where their tagline was, for the price of a couple of coffees, you can get a phenomenal skincare ingredient. That price point was drugstore to its core, and that's one of the first things that attracted me to the Inkey List. They launched with super affordable products, which clearly came at lower margins than was the industry standard, and still delivered really fantastic formulations. It always surprises me at launch that quite a few people were willing to overlook the obvious similarities between the Inkey List and The Ordinary. I think this has changed over time, and we'll come on to that later in the video, but on launch there were a lot of duplications in terms of the products that the Inkey List launched versus the already existing collection that The Ordinary had. Whilst the formulations were slightly different, and in truth I actually prefer a lot of the Inkey List formulations over The Ordinary ones, the collection was very similar, but no one seemed to call this out at the time. It kind of just got lost and people moved on. And again, I think that's to the credit of the owners that they were able to really focus down on the ethics and the values of the brand itself, which allowed a lot of people to kind of bypass some of the obvious similarities. In short, the brand launched, it took off, and it sold out in like the shortest possible amount of time. Just about everybody wanted to talk about this brand. They loved the appeal, the look of the products themselves, that gorgeous price point, and everybody wanted to get their hands on some of these products, which became increasingly difficult because obviously it was such an instant hit. We now move seamlessly into 2019, and this is an era I think where the brand just focused down on their core values. They really dialed up the rate of marketing surrounding their cruelty-free status, their affordability, the transparency, the fact that they weren't afraid to use scientific terms for the ingredients that they were using, and that they didn't treat us, the consumer, as fools with overhyped marketing. It was all about the products and what it could actually deliver for your skin. I think this was quite a clever move, because whilst everyone fell in love with the packaging and the formulations themselves, I think the next clear turn was focusing on how good the brand itself was. They had some real clear goals, ambitions, and ethics statements on their website. And again, this is something that really appealed to me. This is where I think they earned their reputation as being like the good guys in the skincare world. And honestly, I think at this point it was definitely deserved. This was also a time period where influencer skincare really took off, and the Inkey List were one of the first brands to really benefit from this. I think, if I go behind the scenes, I think the reason for this is influencers, particularly when they're starting out or have a smaller subscriber base, obviously focus down on the brands that are getting a lot of search volume and attention. That's because you want to see people organically stumble across your channel, and the best way to do that is by reviewing brands which are very much hyped and are likely to generate, YouTube referrals and traffic to your either YouTube or Instagram. The Inkey List definitely benefited from this, because with the exception of The Ordinary, I think they were the most talked about, hyped, searched skincare brand out there. And a lot of influencers started doing reviews, talking about the best and the worst from the Inkey List, talking about the brand itself, reviews of their individual products. This is actually something I definitely did at the start of this channel. One of my first big videos actually centered around this, which was the Inkey List Oat Cleansing Balm. So many people searched out this product and a review for it, and I was one of the few that actually had a review of this specific product, and that video did really well. Of course, on the back of this, the Inkey List actually didn't have to do a whole lot of marketing. This sort of viral hype and performance around the products just drove sales through the roof, and they continued to grow and grow and grow. 2019 was also the year where I think the Inkey List started to be different to The Ordinary. I said back at launch, very few people actually noticed the clear similarities between the two product ranges, but in 2019 things definitely started to diverge. I think one of the key ways of doing that is the Inkey Lists were always in stock. Now, I know this sounds like this shouldn't be a revelation, but if you think back to The Ordinary in this time period, none of their best-selling products were ever in stock. You were constantly disappointed when you went to buy them. The Inkey List didn't have the same problem. They seemed to be able to keep all of their products in stock, and whilst sometimes you might have to wait a week or two to get your hands on them, really they had a quick stock turnaround, and this was definitely to their credit. There is nothing more frustrating as a consumer of finding like your holy grail skincare product, reaching out to repurchase it and finding it's forever out of stock. Then you have to move on to try and find a dupe or a substitute for it. You rarely had the problem with that and the Inkey List, and honestly, again, I think that's definitely to their credit and one of the things that started to clearly differentiate themselves from The Ordinary. They also started to appear in physical stores, something which up until this point The Ordinary had never done. Here in the UK they launched in Boots, which is the biggest drugstore and retailer on the high street, and I think this was a nice little twist and angle, because whilst you could buy them online through Cult Beauty, you also were able to get your hands on them and try them before you buy them in physical physical stores. The final thing in this 2019 year for the Inkey List was there were a lot of people speculating about who actually owns the brand. Now, for a lot of people, this doesn't really matter. You know, if you like the product, if you like the brand, you buy from them. You don't really care who ultimately owns the organization or the brand itself. However, when a brand like the Inkey List prides itself on transparency, I think people started to look and say, I'm not so sure that everything might be ringing true. I think for a brand to grow in size from relative, inception a year ago through to this massive multinational brand and being able to scale up to meet the demand by neither having products out of stock, a lot of people say, does this really ring true with such a small startup? Clearly, there's some other things in play here. A lot of people started to speculate that Unilever might have bought a stake in and be involved in the Inkey List. Cult Beauty, the Hut Group, Boots themselves, which is the big drugstore, could actually have a hand in this and an investment. To this day, we still actually don't know. And if you Google, do any searches online, it's really difficult to find out. Again, I don't think this is a huge issue for me personally, but for people that want to know who ultimately owns brands so they can make an informed consumer decision, it's actually very difficult to do so with the Inkey List, and this started to become very apparent in this phase. Of course, Mark and Collect remained the face of the brand and did so much PR in this period to really promote the Inkey List, the products, and their own rags to riches story from inception through to a couple of years later having a sell-out brand. Honestly, I would encourage everybody to check out some of the interviews that have been done with the founders. They're so warm, they appear so kind, genuine, and just really, really enthusiastic about skincare and the Inkey List. Definitely one to check out. I think the interest went into overdrive when it came to these two individuals, even down to people speculating about their relationship status. Who cares? This is nobody's business but their own. But you know what? It grew and grew and grew, and I think this is just demonstrative of how much hype there was around the founders and the brand itself. Now, let's move seamlessly from 2019 through 2020, where honestly, the brand just continued to grow and flourish. There were a few new product launches, but nothing majorly significant happened. And then we come into 2021, which I think is the period where the brand came under increasing scrutiny. Lots of people started calling them out for abandoning some of their original and core principles. I think this is only to be expected, because honestly, the bigger a brand gets, I think the more scrutiny they're subjected to. And that was definitely the case with the Inkey List. A lot of the criticism actually focused on their product launches that happened in 2021. Their original claims to be kind of like marketing free, almost just focusing down on the ingredients and the quality of the formulations and what they'll deliver for your skin, rather than from any hype or marketing gumph that came around it, I think started to unravel just a little bit in this period. It already started with this product, which is the Inkey List Succinic Acid Blemish Treatment. Now, this product, which by the way actually works really well and is one of my favourite spot treatments that I've tried. Trust me, as someone who is oily and acne prone, this works really, really well. However, it was the name that I think rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. So in here, you've got sulfur, which is a fantastic calming anti-redness ingredient. You've also got salicylic acid, which is one of my favourite spot fighters. And you have got a small amount of succinic acid. Now, succinic acid, whilst there are studies out there showing it can be beneficial in reducing the amount of acne causing bacteria on the skin, there's not a whole lot of evidence showing it's doing a whole lot in this product. A lot of people said the reason they called it the succinic acid blemish treatment rather than the sulfur or the salicylic acid blemish treatment is to really grab people's attention. It sounds, medical. You think succinic acid, ooh, that sounds new, revolutionary, and something that I want to get my hands on. In truth, in this product, it's the sulfur and the salicylic acid doing all the heavy lifting, and I think that the succinic acid is just, there, maybe doing its thing, but I don't necessarily think it deserves to be called out as the title ingredient. Again, a lot of people found that this kind of rubbed them up the wrong way and said, let's be truthful and just call it what it is. They also released a Madagascar mask, which I think underwhelmed a lot of people. In fact, you very rarely hear it talked about online at all. I think one of the main reasons for this was it's designed to be calming, soothing, great for people with sensitive or redness prone skin. But in here you had menthol extract, which is one of the most sensitizing or potentially sensitizing ingredients in skincare. And a lot of people said, no. This formulation just isn't that. They also started to really ramp up the amount of new products that they were launching. They had a hair care range launched in this period, which again, underwhelmed a lot of people. I personally thought that the bond repairing serum that they had was quite good, and the people that I've gifted it to try have said, yeah, actually, this works relatively well, but I think the rest of the hair care line left people feeling a bit underwhelmed, and recently I did spot it on sale in Home Bargains here in the UK, so clearly I think they're trying to shift some of the dead stock that they have have when it comes to this hair care line. All this taken together left people to think, is this now moving on from the genuine, the founding principles of the brand, that clear transparency, focus on the quality of outcomes rather than the marketing, and just, being open and the good guy in skincare? Has this changed a little bit? And are we now seeing them focusing down on this sort of ingredients likely to sell well, and really just maybe not being as honest and open with us, the consumer? In the end, I personally think if a product works, it works. The succinic acid blemish treatment worked for me, and I was happy to use it. It's one of my favourites. Do I think the name could be better? Yeah, maybe. Is it enough to, call out a brand and say that they've completely changed? No, I think maybe they've just evolved their approach ever so slightly over the 3 years since they were actually launched. You've also seen in the recent launches a little bit of a return to form of the Inkey List. I think maybe this was a bit of an experimental period they went through. Let's try some new medical sounding ingredients that might capture people's attentions. Probably found that the feedback they got wasn't great and that actually it created more of a negative impression of the brand. And they've kind of returned to form. Their recent launches such as this, the hyaluronic acid cleanser, is just that, a cleanser with hyaluronic acid in. It's actually really, really good. They also have an azelaic acid serum that they've just launched. Again, the focus is azelaic acid. So I think they've gone back to that focus on those hero ingredients that could actually really impact your skin and the outcomes that you're going to see, and really ditch that marketing approach where they focus down on trendy sounding new and innovative ingredients. Finally, when we close out 2021, we had the launch of the Selfless by Hyram collection. Now, this was actually preceded by the Changemaker kit, which the Inkey List did in collaboration with Hyram, who is the biggest skincare influencer here on YouTube. You've all heard of him. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description box below. Definitely worth checking out. But I think there's nobody on planet Earth that's interested in skincare that hasn't heard of Hyram. The Changemaker kit was that collaboration between Hyram and the Inkey List. Actually did really, really well. What this was like a wash bag that had picked Inkey List products that were handpicked by Hyram within it, and a certain percentage of the proceeds or profits went to charity. I liked the selection that went into this. The wash bag, whilst it's not necessary, actually was really nice and high quality. This sold out and did really well. So clearly the Inkey List knew that they were onto something. They worked with Hyram on the launch of his own skincare brand, the Selfless by Hyram collection. This one is a little bit confusing to unpack because whilst it claims to be powered by the Inkey List, and clearly from the marketing that goes alongside it, the Inkey List have been formulating, creating and manufacturing all of the Selfless by Hyram products. It's not actually clear who owns the brand. Is it Hyram's brand and he's just subcontracting the creation of it to the Inkey List, or is it owned by the Inkey List and Hyram's putting his name to it and putting his input into the formulations? I don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know because fundamentally it's not necessarily our business, but that was quite difficult to find out. This was launched with great fanfare, and honestly, kudos to the Inkey List because I think there isn't a brand out there that wouldn't have wanted to partner with Hyram, and the fact that he chose the Inkey List, I think, did them a lot of credit because clearly they're one of his favourite brands. This did them a lot of kudos. They won a lot of plaudits for really nailing down and getting this collaboration. The brand launched, and I'd say to mixed reviews. Some people absolutely love the products. I thought the cleanser was fantastic, really well formulated, a beautiful cleanser. I think the other products would work well for certain skin types. They weren't necessarily formulated for me, but people did enjoy them if it applied to their individual skin type. I think the main issue surrounding this launch was the price point and the fact that knowing that the Inkey List are able to create some phenomenal formulations at a rock bottom and affordable price point led a lot of people to say, why are the Selfless by Hyram products costing 3 or 4 times as much as the equivalent product would cost with the Inkey List when we know that it's formulated, manufactured and packaged by the Inkey List? It kind of just seemed a bit disjointed, and that's what I think rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. Fundamentally, without knowing what the structure of this, I don't know how well this was done for the Inkey List, and like I say, it's probably none of our business, but clearly the Inkey List did well out of this collaboration. It certainly did their reputation no harm at all to be associated with the biggest skincare influencer. They clearly were making a lot of profits from creating these products, whether they owned the brand or whether it was Hyram's. Again, doesn't really matter. They were clearly benefiting from this, and I think this was a nice collaboration from their point. I think, the more that people focused the attention on that price disparity, really went towards Hyram because ultimately it was his name that was on the bottle rather than the Inkey List, and I think this was a nice closeout to 2021 for the brand as a whole. When it comes to what I think is in store for the Inkey List in 2022, I hope that they continue with that return to basics approach where they focus down on those fantastic ingredients, being the real stand out for their formulations. Do away with some of, the interesting sounding and hyped ingredients and just focus down on what's actually going to work for our skin and return to the hero products concept. Hopefully that's the approach they'll continue to drive the brand forward in 2022. But honestly, I think by looking back at the Inkey List in a very short period of time, one thing we can take is, yes, it's absolutely possible to have a hyped, a really well received and super popular skincare line in stock the whole time. Very few of their products were sold out for a long period of time. That's definitely to their credit. Obviously, Marc and Colette did something magical with this brand. They utilized their connections, their experience in the industry to come up with a fantastically formulated brand at a really affordable price point that just captured people's imaginations and passions, because just about everyone I think out there has tried at least one of the Inkey List product. I love so many of their products and they've worked really well for my skin, and whilst some of their collaborations later on in 2021 didn't necessarily really appeal to me, they certainly did to other people, and I think it's to the credit again of the Inkey List that they were able to secure those and drive them forward. I think we've got a lot to look forward to for the Inkey List in the coming years, and also a lot to be thankful for. Accompanied with The Ordinary that I've already covered in this series, I think they really drove home that affordable skincare can be amazing. And my ethos on this channel has always been good skincare should never be a luxury, and there are some great, amazing products at the drugstore, and the Inkey List definitely have some within their collection. Again, I would love to know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions, so sound off in the comment section below. And wherever you are in the world, guys, stay safe, stay well, and love your skin. Take care. Bye.